Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining from. And welcome to the second in our series of live stream panel discussions for investors and startup founders. I'm Brett Waters. I've been in Silicon Valley my entire life, immersed in the world of entrepreneurship, innovation, and venture capital. And joining me as co-host this morning is Louis Lowe. Hey, Louis.
Good morning, Brett. Thanks for putting this together as always. I like the little jingle.
Yeah.
For everyone who doesn't know, I'm Louis Lowe. I'm a startup lawyer here in Palo Alto, a few stone's throws from Stanford University. And my mission in life is to help founders and investors form new businesses, finance them, scale them for growth, and have a great outcome.
Nice. So, Louis, it's hard to believe, but it was only 6 months ago that most of us had never heard of ChatGPT before. And then in January, they had 100 million users. So it really kind of, more than anything I've ever experienced in my Silicon Valley career, kind of seemed to come out of nowhere and all of a sudden appears to be changing everything. And one of the main things that we need to know, Louis, is will ChatGPT replace lawyers?
It's certainly going to replace many things that we do, and I think it's going to increase the accuracy of what we do, the efficiency of what we do. And I think it makes us better. So I'm certainly out there competing in the marketplace as somebody who uses more technology tools than less.
Nice. So we've got a terrific panel of experts joining us this morning. And Ben, hey.
Hey, thanks for having me today.
You bet. Give us the brief background on yourself.
Sure. So Benjamin Levy, co-founder and general partner at Bootstrap Labs. We're an early-stage venture capital firm focused on applied AI technology since actually the past 7 years. So probably a bit before everyone else out there. We've been investing in deep technology for much longer than that, but really focused on applied AI for the last 7 years. Future of work, mobility, health, digital infrastructure, financial infrastructure, and energy and climate. So really looking forward to this conversation here as we've seen things evolved since the early days to where we are today.
Yeah. And Walter, what do we need to know about you?
Well, my background is in AI, like most people in the panel, I think. And I did my PhD on computational semiotics. That's the storytelling abilities of language models. I've been an entrepreneur for a very long time together with my wife. We were involved in 4 IPOs, 2 in America and 2 in Europe. And I'm now enjoying the summer of AI in the beautiful campus of Stanford for my 5th year. And I've recently become the curator of the new TED event, which is called TED AI, which will be for the first time October 17. And my wife is the producer. She's the boss, actually.
The boss.
So be nice to them if you want to be speaking over there.
Yeah. And Depanwata, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. Thank you for having me, Brett. So I'm joining in from Washington, D.C. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Sourcero. We are a leading medical analytics platform for life sciences products. And our customers use us to gain more insights into how their products are performing once it's in market, and then drive better decisions around both market retention and expansion. At the end of the day, we live because patients can't wait to make sure that they get the right treatment at the right time. And of course, we use AI to accelerate the decision-making and really augment our users. And that's our philosophy to using any cognitive technology.
Yeah. Alex, what are you all about?
Hi, everyone. Happy to be here. I'm Alex Babin, CEO and co-founder of Zero Systems, joining from not so sunny Campbell, California. It's not so sunny here. But Zero is orchestrating an operating system to build, run, and deploy generative AI applications for large enterprises. And we focus on knowledge workers like lawyers, accountants, consultants, financial specialists, and so on and so forth. Because we believe that, as we're saying, AI will not replace people. It will replace people who are not using AI. And people should be focusing on doing what they're good at and what they like doing at the same time. And everything else should be delegated to AI. So that's what we do.
Excellent. and Suman. Uh-oh, he may be frozen. So let's go to Ahmed.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, give us the brief background of yourself.
All right, my name is Ahmed Reza. I am the founder and CEO of Yobi. Been in the AI space for a while, but not as decorated as some of the other wonderful folks on this call. We're working on building synthetic agents. Basically started imagining what the future of business communications might look like a few years ago, after transformers are out and attention's all you need. So the AI geeks got to work. It was really hard to explain to people what we did, but thanks to ChatGPT, now everybody's like breaking down our doors for synthetic agents and customer service, sales, and marketing.
And Suman, can you hear us? Not yet.
Well, let me tell you who Suman is.
Okay,
Brett.
perfect.
He, like Ben, is an investor who's solely focused on very early stage AI businesses, and he has a new fund that he's investing from, and is oftentimes the first check into a new business. And he's based here in the Silicon Valley and got a fantastic network of AI companies. And I look forward to his perspective on what the opportunities and challenges are, both for companies and investors in the market.
Louis, I think you're hired after that. He's going to hire you for all his intros.
Oh, nice job, Louis. So Ben, you said something pretty interesting, which is you said that you feel like since ChatGPT became a household term, that it's easier to explain what your company does. Is that what you said?
Not, but I'm happy to jump on this. Look,
okay.
I think Walter, wrote the paper early on this, but it's kind of interesting, right? I built an AI company in 2000, and I would say some of the things we do today are not very different, but Gen AI is kind of, I like to call it a global consciousness moment, right? Nikolai, my co-founder, like to speak about another Sputnik moment. People around the world have kind of realized the capabilities, and now everybody has maybe not a better understanding, but at least as is touching the product and is able to see it, when before that, frankly, it was embedded deep into the code, and most people were using it without understanding it or even seeing it. So I think from that standpoint, we've made the world aware of it, for good and for bad. We can talk about some of the challenges that it brings along with it. We've been investing for a long time in AI. I think one of the first VCs in the US. So we always thought about narrow systems, and human augmented intelligence is where value creation was really taking place. We've been investing in large language model type technologies for 7+ years. So not news to us. We've been having companies using this sort of platform for a little while. But again, the value is still to be determined in my book, in that we call it applied AI as our approach to investing, and I think it still stands true for Gen AI. I think people are still searching for product market fit for this Gen AI core technology. And I think the context in which you apply it will be fundamentally different. Health, as we just heard somebody mention, or sales and marketing. I think what this technology can do, should be trusted for, it will vary widely. So I'll pause there because I'm sure everybody has a point of view on that.
Yeah. Anybody else want to jump in on this?
On generative AI, yeah, I'm happy to speak to it a bit. You mentioned health, and I think for us, we are working, or we're supporting users and customers who have been working with a lot of data in a high-tech environment, aka life sciences, drug discovery. We've seen some great applications of AI in this space. But when it comes to the operations of those organizations and actually optimizing and scaling up how they operate, that's really where they're still to be transformed. And what's very interesting about our customer base is just that, is that they're starting to realize what kind of quote unquote superpowers this sort of technology can give them in scaling up and making their operations more efficient, making their operations more data driven, having more nuance of their customer base in a real-time basis.
I wanted to add something what Benjamin said. Yeah. Ben, you just compared it with a Sputnik type of event. I would say more of a Brothers Wright first flight of AI type of event. We're in the air, we're flying 300 yards. It's a great achievement on its own, especially in the mindset, less on the technology, more in the mindset, because we've been doing it for over 4 years. But what we see right now is that enterprises and customers, they actually don't need that paper plane yet. They need Boeing 777 with all the whistles and bells and the cocktails to be served in first class. So we are in this transition moment between, wow, we are in the air, to like, okay, where is my ticket and where's my seat on this plane?
And many will crash and burn in the process.
Many will crash and burn in the process.
And remember this old saying, which is partially joke, partially true, that at the dawn of aviation, CTOs were typically the test pilots. That's how the industry ran out of bad CTOs really quickly.
I like that.
If I could add just one, I can't help but add this.
Please. Yeah,
So
please.
in the beginning of the aviation race, it's interesting that you bring that up, Alex. There were all of these companies that were racing to build the first airplane.
Right.
And we should take this lesson very, very seriously. The guys that got the most press, that had the most PhDs and all this, they never launched anything. It was two bicycle mechanics, right?
Yes.
They were very much, practical folks that ended up building the very first airplane and ended up like changing the field. So we are very early in this AI race, and I think some people are already calling winners. It's similar to the airplane time. It's like, oh, these guys are the best funded, have the most PhDs. That's not necessarily the case, as history has shown.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
I think we like to think of DeepMind acquisition as a generative AGI acquisition, if you will. There's a raw talent, 400 million maybe, and then you look at Mobileye at the time was a $12 billion acquisition. Right, difference between general AI and applied AI, right? When you're able to apply it in a context and a market and to give it all the bells and whistles. Product market fit is so key. Well, I said recently, nobody buys your software because you have AI.
That's actually correct. And Ahmed, you have a very good point. The most well-funded companies in Nadal and aviation, actually funded by government and other organizations, failed. And two guys from a garage actually built it because they figured out how to do it safely. The problem is, fundamental problem is that all the test flights were being taken from a high buildings or high level. And when the plane was crashing, and it's inevitable at the very beginning, people were killed and they actually were slowed down. What these guys in North Carolina figured out is that to use sand dunes as a safe way to test the wing and find the right geometry so it's safe to fly. And they were iterating and iterating and iterating, and they were not putting the engine on the plane until they figure out how the wing should look like, geometry should look like. So that's actually what I see right now happening with large organizations. They're doing a great job on kind of sparking the whole thing, but also open source community. These guys are testing and testing until they put the engine on. So it's incredible to see those parallels between those two technologies.
But I think the alignment of incentives and risk reward were also a lot closer back then. You fail, you die. I think here people can try a bunch of things and they don't really are the recipient of the byproducts.
You can literally run out of engineers.
Well, we've got founders and investors from all over the world in the telling us where they're calling in from in the comment area. And one of the questions that I keep getting over and over, and that I have when I meet new founders in the business that I do, is how do you take an idea and turn it into the first dollar of revenue? Because I think that's challenge number one. Is it's not because there's technology that there's a product. And each of you founders has found a way to turn your technology into a product. And then I'm gonna follow up on that with how do you take it from the first dollar of revenue to the 10th dollar of revenue? And Alex, I think I'm going to start with you because your name starts with an A. Tell me about the first sale you had for Zero, and how you turned your technology into a product.
It's a great question, Louis. And actually, it's been talked about many times, never changed since then. It always starts with beachhead market, or the small enough market you can win over and then move to another market. And in our case, it was legal. we went into selling into legal, because lawyers, they are knowledge workers, and the amount of manual work they do, and the cost of time spent on non-billable stuff, you know that better than anyone else, is incredible. So it's about the ROI on the next day. So we started building AI products to help lawyers to get to be more productive, do more with less, and get ROI faster. And then from that, we started expanding to other areas. But the biggest advantage of that and growing the business from that niche market was, number one, legal is referenceable. If it's good for Louis, it's good for everyone else in the top 100 of Fortune 100 companies, right? Because legal firms, they have security standards, they are risk averse, and if you can sell to legal, you can sell to anyone. So and of course the data, incredible amount of data to train AI on, and then move to another vertical. So I would say fundamentals never change. You start with a small market that can be referenceable to other verticals, and expand and try to win it.
Dee, tell us how you did it at Sourcero.
Lots of things. I definitely echo many of the things that Alex said. But for us, the other driver was the kind of content our users use, technical, unstructured, medical, often in a regulated environment, did not lend itself well to some of the tech available before. So, as cognitive technology evolves onto itself, and particularly in our case, transformers were a big driver of why we chose to do what we do. We started addressing problems in life sciences. But I want to be very real. Our customers buy us because we supercharge their workflows. They're excited that there is AI under the hood, and they're excited about what AI can do for them. And certainly ChatGPT has brought more people to our door. It's, my commercial team tells me it's the best BD tool on earth. But once they're over that excitement of, oh my God, this could be cool, the question is, how do I use it? Where does it fit in my workflow? Is compliance going to kill me about it?
Right.
So that's the many slips between cup and lip. And so we have been very, 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 very focused on actually solving the business challenge, and then choosing where to apply AI to generate our first dollar and the 8th and the 10th and so forth. But that's really the key: discover the business problem.
Right. In my, it's one of the mantras that I preach to my Stanford students is, great startups begin with a problem worth solving. And right now, I think, generative AI is this cool thing that everybody's talking about. But, to what extent are entrepreneurs putting it to use on problems worth solving? So Steph was a little bit freaked out by all of your aviation crash metaphors. And I'm just glad I'm not getting on a flight this afternoon after all that discussion. But Steph asked the question about, when is it safe to fly AI?
It's a great question.
I actually know Steph. Thanks for the question, Steph.
I think Steph should not be scared of flying AI right now. It's just about what plane you're boarding. So there are companies that have been doing AI long time before. I remember explaining to my clients what LLM is 2 years ago. Now everyone and their dog know what LLM is. Right. But it actually about what under the hood, and literally the enterprise clients don't care if it's a black magic or AI. They just need ROI, and they need ROI as fast as possible, and also to be secure, dependable, scalable, and so on and so forth. So it's there are a lot of companies that are just wrappers around ChatGPT. I would say that type of thing is not very much scalable, and we'll see AI bicycles, AI sandwiches, AI everything.
You know what we need, Alex? We need an AI juice machine that sits on your counter.
God. I think there was one, they failed miserably.
By the way,
little juice out of it. But
Autopilot has been out there for a while. You've been flying with AI without looking at it or thinking about it, right?
Exactly.
I think it's already there. It's just not completely autonomous from takeoff and landing, but.
So Orly asks kind of a related question, which is just differentiation. That suddenly everybody has AI in their tagline, right? And so what is the differentiation? What makes one AI company more potentially successful than another?
I'm thinking we got Suman online. Suman, maybe you want to jump on that? You
Suman, welcome.
Early. You're on mute right now, but if you unmute yourself.
Welcome.
Suman, you got to unmute, buddy.
I was hoping to give him a bit more airtime since
Yeah.
he started later.
Yeah.
He's
You know
still
what we
on mute.
need?
Oh, there he is.
We need
Good.
AI that knows how to unmute you.
I quite like it.
We still don't hear you for some reason, Suman.
Yeah, I think the folks
All
in
right.
San Francisco.
I'll jump in on the differentiation.
Right.
Obviously we've seen a lot, and there's a lot of noise in the market.
Yeah.
Look, like Alex said, if you are a wrapper around ChatGPT, that might become an issue. I mean, we're asking ourselves these questions, right? We think LLMs will be generalized and commoditized, and there are going to be a lot of different flavors out there. One of the big challenges we see right now with Gen AI is hallucination. So in context where hallucination is a fantastic thing, great. But if there are divergent models that will never converge and two people get different answers for same questions, I think we're a society built on truth or trying to, and that is a challenge in the enterprise world for sure. If you're trying to create a new scenario for a movie, fantastic. If you're trying to create an original outreach for a prospect you don't know and you don't have too much to lose because your brand might be trash, because you're saying the wrong type of email, that's okay. So it's empowering the small guys in ways that they are careless and carefree. But for the bigger guys, there's different challenges. I think, like we heard earlier, they're expecting a fully flown, fully secured solution, and most people don't have that. We have a company that has worked on that for years, and we believe they have a great solution for the enterprise using these sort of models. But different conversation. When it comes to differentiation, we always ask, what is the proprietary part of what you do? Do you have access to unique sets of data that others may not? Are you creating widgets that capture data that doesn't exist in the wild? Are you able to learn from these and create, vertical applications, often narrower systems that are extremely good and better than anything you can find off the shelves? And we've seen our startup time and time over again beating the big brands, in very narrow situations, because they have not only this narrow focus, but also this ability to build a solution to the problem, not just models for the sake of models or technology for the sake of technology.
Right.
And then we can talk about go-to-market. But since this is a panel that probably loves prediction, here's my first prediction. I'm saying we're going to see the first billion-dollar company with less than 10 employees in this decade.
Yeah, that's good.
Because we not only go from a world of AI-first companies, which is what we've been focusing our time and investing in, to AI-first companies that are AI-enabled, and therefore will be able to launch sales, marketing, manufacturing, recruiting, all these things with virtual agents. So I'd love to hear what Ahmed is working on. And that's scary and disruptive. Let's put it this way, but it's exciting too.
Ahmed, you want to jump in?
Yeah, certainly. I guess cat's out of the bag there. So I have a digital clone of myself that's interacting on social media on my behalf.
There you go.
He's not joking.
I'm not joking.
Talking to us right now.
Yeah. So actually, we're working on meetings. We'll be able to do it very soon. So yeah, I figured, how do you make money? Build things that make money. Sales, marketing, and customer service, things that cost me a lot of money. So in my last company, I did sales myself. I basically made my millions using AI, right? And the first time I met Louis, I said, Louis, I'm a pretty crazy guy, right? I use machine learning to bootstrap a startup to millions in revenue, and I've never been able to figure out how to get a second salesperson to do what I do. I was the only salesperson, and being a computer geek, I'm not that great with people, so I was like, I wish I could just clone myself. And then I was like, maybe I can. So I have a deep fake of my voice, and we have this engine called the goal-oriented conversation engine that's able to be a better SDR than anything else I've seen. I'm overbooked. If you look at my social media, if you look at our inbound, we were at near zero revenue last year. And in less than 6 months, we've blown through our second million ARR. And it's insane. Like, just being in the driver's seat, watching this thing, it's like, damn, this is real.
Yeah.
I mean, I have one question. Are you talking to the real person right now, or a digital clone? Just reveal yourself, please.
Yeah.
The clone will get much better answers.
When you can create a deep fake that'll participate in live stream panel discussions, then we'll be impressed. So let me ask you guys a question. So one of the criticisms of large language models is that it's kind of a brute force guess the next word approach, right? So it's not super elegant. I guess I have two questions. One is that an accurate way to characterize it? And then second, kind of where do we go from here?
Walter, do you want to take that?
Well, yeah, so yes, I was just waiting until the NetJets commercial was finished. So, well, it's not so easy as we say, because now people always, like we made many mistakes in the past, since Chomsky to now, and perceptron and the different layers and the inability to understand, reinitializing of LLMs. But now that we are where we can basically, most LLMs have like 1 trillion words, which is also an interesting question. I think I know where they come from. But these words are now, if you put them together, so they basically operate in a, no, let me rephrase that. So lately I've been thinking a lot about how we educate our children and how we educate our large language models. When kids are like 2 to 3 years old, we already treat them as diffusers and transformers. Like we already tell them, like, draw something. So that's the diffuser, like, which colors are you using here? But these are not the right colors, like we're prompting them into. At the same time, we are telling them, like, write house, what is the next letter, and then we try to make them, and have a sense of language, because the mission of our pre-cortex is to predict the next second. It is the reduction of surprise. Otherwise we will not survive. And that's also what we tell our children. Look right, look left when you cross over, stranger danger, like we teach them all these things. Now, it is true that language model that, BERT was in both directions. Now the language model goes, in a transformer to the right. It predicts the next letter, but it also predicts the next word, and it also predicts the next sentence and the next paragraph and the next chapter, and this is all in context learning with some prompt engineering, which will now be, because I hear, like people are obsessed with the no code. You don't need to know anything anymore, like, but that will quickly change, because we've been there before. People are now already, doing function calls and injecting a lot of Python in their prompts. So
I think a lot of parents are really believers in reinforced learning, though.
Yeah.
What really resonates what Walter said. Sometimes I feel like my kids are neural networks trained on YouTube videos, and Netflix. But actually, what Walter touched is really interesting. And of course, large language models, as we know them, and transformers are critically important. But it's really commoditized very much right now. Ben said before, and just wanted to kind of touch on a different topic. We all talk about what the state is right now. We're not talking about what the future is. For example, we are working as part of our deep tech thing. We're working on action transformer. So what Walter is saying, predicting what the next step for the user would be in the process of performing their work. And that's a pretty incredible piece of a model we already have working. And of course, we can predict like 1, 2, 3 steps when the user goes through the process to accomplish a business task. But in the future, it might be much more, which is at the very beginning of that process. But it's incredible. It, like, if people think that large language model feels like black magic, oh, you should have seen this kind of things. And there are so many possibilities opening up when you start combining those two things. And there might be third opportunities showing up. So I think future for large language models is going to be not in a like one large model rule at all, but the family of smaller models that are highly specialized, that kind of are being connected by a larger model to do kind of a general reasoning, but also those specialized models like action transformers and others to actually provide much more than what we can do right now. the future is really looks interesting right now.
If I may share, in 2017 at our conference, we had one of our advisors starting to map a path to AGI if and when we ever get there, and do we want to get there? Different conversation. But what was interesting about that roadmap to AGI is that we went from narrow discrete AI systems, which was very much 2017, 18, 19, those narrow systems, to a vision of constellations of systems, of AI systems. And I think the coordination of these constellations of narrow AI systems and orchestrations of these systems, which is very much what we're seeing with kind of baby AGI and AutoGPT and other things, right? This is where we're going in coordinating discrete, really strong models in different areas. To start coordinating these things is where I think we're going to have a leap of, an order of magnitude improvement in productivity. And what the impact of that will be on society, again, I think you need to be a thoughtful investor.
Yeah,
Right.
I agree.
That's what we're doing, actually.
I really like baby AGI, and so it's now sort of called the AutoGPT category, and I really like it, although you have to handcraft these agents a little bit now, but it will be better. And now certainly with the introduction of function calls, it will be better. But, these agents get stuck. These agents get stuck in decision making, or like they're waiting for somebody. But, this is the same with students, with employees, with executives. They get stuck, they wait for somebody else. Then you have to either give them a pep talk or threaten them in a way, and the same thing we are now trying to do with these agents. But it's an interesting thing, if you are now setting up a company, and we had that, Ben, you said about the thin wrapper, the thin wrapper around LLMs. Is that really a company? Well, probably it isn't, but it can be a lifestyle company,
Right, exactly. And we're seeing a fair amount of those. I mean, you grow to millions of dollars in revenue. Can you become a category-defining company? That's much more challenging.
And
I just want to quickly, hate to interrupt, but I just want to see whether Suman's audio is working now. Suman.
Is it working?
Perfect.
Hey.
Hey.
Well, so I had about 20 minutes of prepared remarks. So I'm get in there now.
Yeah.
Just to hit one point, I think a few of us have seen these different paradigm shifts. So, first one for me was the internet, right? And there was a period of time where people were talking about the widgets, and then there was 2009, 2010, people talking about the cloud. And so I think we're in the same type of era. Like if you sort of stay away from talking about the macro things, I think there's just a lot of experimentation that's happening in this broad AI space. And so very kind of top down, trying to predict what's going to work, what's going to be safe, what's going to kind of be the killer app. It's really hard. And I think you need to have this portfolio approach where, through trial and error, you're fortunate to stumble into companies like Zero, right? Or Sorcero. And there's just, a couple of anecdotes. I think Alex had a social media post where he had this like runaway suitcase. It was like an AI suitcase. And it was like runaway and like, and it's very true. It's I think through trial and error, we're going to find these like edge use cases where things don't work. But we are focusing on the ones that do work. And when these, we discover these AI white spaces and we find these companies that are creating products that do work, I think the upside is so tremendous. And I think that's the excitement, that's the enthusiasm that I think people are feeling. So I think, anyway, so that's a bit of an anecdote on how I look at kind of the space right now and where we are and how a lot of the companies that we're seeing fit in.
Actually, worth unfolding, Suman. You mentioned something that is anecdote, but actually true story, number one. And second, it's a whole topic to unfold. So you mentioned this suitcase with AI technology and the tracker that the person who was in the airport wanted to be in a luggage. And they forgot to load it into the airplane. So the guy who got into the airplane and the airplane was taking off, and the suitcase was trained to actually avoid obstacles. So it found its way to the tarmac. and has a video of the suitcase chasing the airplane. And that is funny, but actually it creates a lot of problems, because that's potentially a situation where it can have a collision with an airplane or whatever. So AI is at the stage where those safeguards and guardrails and everything should be in place, because as many people say, it's like putting the nuclear reactor in the middle of the city, pushing the button to see if it works. It might be, but what if it doesn't? So Walter brought up example of baby AGI. How about Chaos GPT? Another example, when the same free agent was trained to actually create chaos and destroy things. And the first thing it tried to find how to build a nuclear bomb. And when we couldn't, the second thing it did, it went to open the Twitter account and start tweeting the misinformation. So it's a weapon of mass destruction. So there's so many components in this, so worth unfolding as well.
Yeah, I think what we're finding as well is, because AI is so relevant now and because it's in everybody's homes, our customers who might not have ever used even barely software before are going to come to us and say, I want AI. They're not even asking for a solution. They want to buy AI. So in the enterprise software space, there's also a risk of salting the field, because there'll always be just about enough people who will sell you AI, which will do nothing for you, will waste many tens, if not hundreds of $1 millions in several years, and will also get a set of enterprise buyers really skeptical about this newfangled tech. And you do see that happening over and over again.
Poisoning the well, yeah. It's like Walter mentioned, I'm enjoying the summer of AI, but let's remind ourselves they were winters and more than one.
Correct. And so, just having that hyper narrow focus on what is really deliverable with what we have today, with safeguards, with measurements, with benchmarking, still remains extremely important. It's slow and it's patient, but it needs to be done. And at the end of the day, it still needs to fit into someone's workflow to change it and for them to keep buying it. They might buy it once because it's hype, but they're not going to keep buying it because if it doesn't do something for them. So sure, the first cut, but I think we're also really looking at what's the second cut of that going to be, and what's going to keep them coming back, and it's unlikely to be the hype.
So Deepak talked about the second cut, and many of you have kind of used the analogy of aviation crashes and nuclear bombs to refer to the fact that we're in a zone right now where we're not sure what works and what doesn't work. And then Suman said that for him as an investor, it's about taking the portfolio approach, where you got to spread your bets around because you don't know which one of these things will end up being successful. But Alex and Ahmed and Dipanwita, for those of us who are entrepreneurs, we don't have the advantage of being able to have a portfolio. We need to go all in on something and build a company around it. It's one of the many ways in which VCs rule the world, is that they have the advantage of distribution of risk.
Yeah, I mean, you look at what's in front of you right now, I think it's a safe bet to just bet on a Bengali.
I'm not going to say no.
All right.
There's the investment thesis from Ed.
So I just realized there's 3 Bengalis on NAI here. Imad Mushtaq, who's also Bengali, estimably diffusion. I was like, wow. So I've been talking to more folks. It's like, that Bengali, man. And this, for me, honestly, from a human perspective, my mom has never known what I do. For all she knows, like I'm in the mob or something. She just goes, "What do you do? There's no buildings with your name on it, and you're not a doctor, so you're obviously not successful." So this was the first time she understood what I was doing, because it speaks Bangla. And I had a long conversation with my mom and with certain aunties. And if there's any saving grace for AI, it is that our aunties will kill us if we don't build like the best AI that brings home A's.
Well, I'm going back to what Walter said, the vision of the future. Say, well, that's interesting. Maybe everybody wants to know what the skills necessary for the future. I was like, well, what if you were to say that you were a therapist for virtual agents, because they have their breaks down, they have waiting, they need their pet talks.
Well, it's a very interesting. At Stanford, we have simulacra of human behavior, where we put 25 agents in a city called Smallville, and we give them identities, and then we study them with 100 moderators and students. And these agents have their job, they have their wives, their families, they go to work, they come back, they reflect, and we can even get in there as an inner voice and direct them or embody them. We have to
Can you make a summer camp for my kid? Is 14. I'm sure he's gonna love this.
And
So, Louis,
I think for investors and for entrepreneurs now, everything is going extremely fast. So as an entrepreneur, you always have to go a little bit in the future, not too much, and try to time it. But timing now is impossible, because we are now, every hour something new appears. So what can you do so that you can set up a company that is future powerful, but that now also survives, without being taken over as a sort of a feature inside OpenAI, So I think and that's why I like Baby AGI, because most CEOs, and I do, I talk to quite a number of boards now. For the first 20 minutes of every board meeting is now AI, and so let's take a smaller public company, 2,000 people. Well, the CEOs probably now have already found out that they should have 10 teams of 4 people and fire all the rest, because and refactor their complete thinking and rethink. Like David Deutsch said, every point is now a boundary point. Like the frontier is everywhere in that company. So like what you have to do, I think, is the following. You do something very far out in the future, and far out means a year. Like a Baby AGI or something like that. At the same time, in order to do Baby AGI, and in order to set that up, you need to know what in-context learning is, what LLMs are, the complete orchestration platforms. So you can have clients from day one. Because I believe that nowadays, if you are working in AI and you don't have a client, and a client means a paying person, not if you have a client, and that makes you progress so much. First of all, like you have a delivery to do, you talk about that client, and you learn from it, you keep the code base, you build on the code base, and so you orchestrate your code base, because you are going for Baby AGI. So I think it's now bootstrapping is, because the AIs are there, and we can generate other agents then to do stuff and kick them in their ass when they are stuck.
So, Louis, you are not an IP attorney, but you have some partners who are IP attorneys. So, how about this whole concern about, large language models are basically sucking a bunch of other people's thoughts off the internet and repackaging them and spitting them out? And so Orly asked the question about, if I have a company and I adopt some of this technology, is there copyright risk?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and it's the subject of some pretty tough litigation right now. And I think the best example of it is Getty Images, which makes its pictures available online. But if you want to download them or save them or use them in a presentation, you've got to pay a fee. And obviously, many of the visual AI engines are receiving these Getty Images into their flow, and then they're creating they're generating AI images on the other end of the engine, which then begs the question: if these copyright protected images were the inputs into the AI engine, do they have some right into the outputs of the AI engine?
Exactly.
That is not a question of settled law, and I've been asked by many investors whether we would give a legal opinion on the IP infringement characteristics of a particular AI model, and they're fascinating mandates that we examine on a case-by-case basis, Brett.
I mean, I give you. We thought a lot about that as well, Louis, obviously, and one side. I mean, interesting conversation, but we all went to school, we all read books, and if I try to write an essay inspiring myself from Victor Hugo or anyone else, is that plagiarism? No. Can someone sue me for it? No. Now, where these images made available and shouldn't have been made available, or were used in a way that was not permitted, that's a different conversation.
Exactly.
And I think I can see a day where maybe OpenAI would be subpoenaed to list every single source they've used to train their models. We're not there; they'll fight it to death. But at some point, people that have a lot of money and feel their business is being disrupted will throw a lot of money at the problem because it's their everything, right?
Look at the solution. Here the question is, where do all these trillion words come from? And is there copyright on these words? But and it's basically, the answer is very simple. It is samizdat. Samizdat is Libgen and Sci-Hub. They are in Russia. They copy everything, and all the students are using, and all the academics are using them, because why? We write these articles, we do the research, and then we go through the examiners, and then when the article is published, we have to pay a ridiculous amount to Elsevier. So everyone is using these trillions of words in the samizdat databases of Libgen and Sci-Hub. It's a well-known secret. So that's where it comes from.
So Sudipto asked an interesting question, which I think the essence of his question is, if you're a company who wants to incorporate more AI into your offerings, especially if you're a non-tech company, do you need to build an internal team around this, or use external AI providers? I think is the essence of his question.
I don't know.
I'd love to
go ahead.
Yeah, go for it.
From some of the experience we've seen. So many of our target market have fairly sizable AI/data science teams internally. Some of them were set up years ago with the intention of building tools, bots, other things that would address their business needs. What most of them discovered is they're not product companies. So yes, certainly, every once in a while, there's a vaguely usable model, there's a chatbot that does a thing, but it definitely does not map to the amount of investment and the pace of development even a tiny little software company could come up with, because they are a product company, right? So that is certainly becoming a realization in the market. I would say what we talk to our customers about is you should have folks on your side who understand technology and who have the ability to evaluate and frankly ask the right questions, whether it's security, usability, ROI question, but maybe not try and make the build decision for most things.
So
there needs to be a marriage of technical understanding with business need understanding on the buying side. But we generally see that if somebody thinks that they're going to build their own LLM, and actually a potential customer told us that we're thinking about building our own LLM. We barely knew how to respond to that. We generally say no, actually use the product.
Like Walter, we spent some time obviously in advising boards and talking to very large corporations about what's happening in the marketplace and with AI. And the analogy I like to use for people, because we heard Suman talk about internet and cloud and all this big wave of disruption. I think back to what you were saying, Walter. I don't know if we can build companies that will last hundreds of years anymore. I don't know if that's where the future is going to be like. But the peak of the market and the waves are higher each and every time. They build on top of each other, and you can monetize them in a shorter period of time as well. It's like the movie industry. The only reason it was taking so long to monetize the movie is because of the rights of the contracts, not because we could launch everywhere on every screen across the planet. And so you think that analogy maybe will create a lot more wealth faster, and then you move on to something else. I don't know about the cycles, which a lot of LPs would love, right? They hate the fact that VCs is a 10+ year business cycle.
Right.
But the analogy I make for corporations and for them to understand the disruption they're facing is this: if you made a lamp, if you manufacture a lamp for hundreds of years, that's how you've made your core business. You manufacture lamps, and all of a sudden you had to learn to sell it online. Great, you adapted and you manage. It's the same lamp. Your supply chain didn't change. The way you manufacture didn't change. Now mobile came along. You use mobile. You learn to sell on mobile versus internet. Then you use VR because it was cool. You can visualize your lamp before you even buy it. Great. Again, didn't disrupt the core business. But now you need to manufacture a smart lamp. Well, what does that mean? What it means is you need to have people in-house that understand AI. You need to actually maybe change your business model to give the lamp for free and save money on the energy and split that with the user. You need to rethink your entire core business, and that could be work for a product or a service. So to answer, the question earlier, you need to think about that. What does your core product and service look like when it's AI embedded, AI smart, right? Because again, that's what's going to disrupt you, right?
Yeah.
And that takes in-house capability as well as adopting innovation faster for everything else that's not core to what you do.
That's good. That's really good.
And just to double click on that really quick, a great book. There's a lot of AI books out there now, but a book that predated the whole LLM and kind of ChatGPT merger. It's called Competing in the Age of AI by Marco Ianciti and Priyam Lakhani, HBS professors. And I think it lays out a pretty good framework for how, if you're an AI company or not AI company, how you should kind of think about that. It touches on a number of points that Ben mentioned. So I definitely calling that out.
Ben and Walter and Suman, you've each invested in a pretty broad swath of AI companies in the market. And I think we have an awesome panel of entrepreneurs who've actually taken a technology and brought it to market and gotten to way over $1 million, in many cases, many millions of dollars of annual recurring revenue. But there are a lot of AI companies out there that might be hyped and that might be in the market looking for capital, who've raised lots of capital and burned lots of capital. What do you see as the big challenge for those companies to succeed and make it to the next level? And what are you seeing in the market as the kind of the next big obstacle for AI companies to overcome?
Well, I think it's always the same thing. Like you get your VCs like us, and we give early seed money, and we give them money, and then we wait a year, and in that year we want a proof of concept, we want a product, and we want clients, and we want to see growth. And entrepreneurs take that money, and they are convinced that they are going to be there at the end of that year, but then they got lost in traffic, they're especially start to use all these fancy words from finance and super voting rights, and by the end of the year, then they don't have a product, or they don't have a client, or they don't have any growth, and then they come back and they say, "Can you help us fire our co-founders?" So it hasn't changed. It's been for 30 years like that. It's not with AI that this changes.
No, I go back to the same thing I tell founders, look, guys, there's no shortcut in life. You need to create value. So you can raise $20 million over a weekend on an $80 million pre if you're well-known founders that investors know and believe you're going to build the next big thing. But that gives you just a bit longer runway to create a value that's going to be 2x that. And so in the end, again, you need to deliver and create value. If not, you're going to fail miserably. I still have LPs that ask me, can we invest in OpenAI? I'm like, no, that was the foundation to begin with. By the way, that's more of an R&D organization. And a lot of that money is on string to budget. But for them, it doesn't care. They don't care because guess what? Microsoft makes all the money on the cloud. This is a distraction. They're selling picks and shovels to people to process in the cloud and make money there, right? So you got to look beyond, the image and perceptions.
The opportunities in the market are now all the large corporations that normally, a corporation is large enough, has money enough to hire people to do that internally. The problem is that all the people they want to hire want to set up their own company,
Right.
and
We love that as VCs.
Yeah.
And that's what has made Silicon Valley great.
Yeah.
Guys, we're just about out of time, but I'd love to quickly go around and hear from each of you a particular use case that you're excited about. Some use case that you think really is going to be profoundly valuable that generative AI will provide. And Suman, we'll start with you since you got cut off at the beginning. Give us an example.
Well, I'm a shameless promoter of the companies that I invested in. So
Perfect.
One, I'm obviously excited about Zero Systems. I think generative AI and broader AI applications within the enterprise based on proprietary data that companies own and want to manage. I think that's a huge white space greenfield. And the company's been amazing in its growth. So that's one. The second is a company I'm with, Ben in. It's a company called Hayden AI, and I think that one's tackling computer vision use cases that we didn't really talk a lot about in this chat. But I think once you have that data, there's a lot of interesting things you can do with it in the city, and that's one that nobody would have thought of probably in the front end, and it's just evolving amazingly well. So I think those are two, and then a third that I'm interested in is in the financial vertical. So if you think about companies like Bloomberg and all the data they have, take that analogy with ChatGPT and all the finance information that's available. I'm on the lookout for an interesting company in that space. And so you wanted one, I give you three.
Excellent. Thank you. Under promising and over delivering. That's what it's all about. Dipanwada, how about you? What use case do you see that you're super excited about?
So there are, we use AI services across many of our product features. There are three that we're seeing is really exciting. One is supporting the generation of plain language summaries or patient lay summaries, which usually accompany a clinical trial report or a poster. So making sure this medical information, which is out there, which is mandatory, is more accessible, both to patient advocacy groups and physicians. Really, really critical, much more scalable, doable with some of the generative AI features. We also are supporting our customers in understanding or finding indications on next best action. So I've processed all these insights from all of my data sources. What is it telling me about how do I handle dosage better? Or what it is telling me about a trend emerging in an evidence gap with a physician? So we see these two places as very, very exciting within our product portfolio.
Awesome. Alex.
Actually, there is not just one case I'm excited about, especially when talking about AI, but the pace at which those use cases appear. And recently, we just discovered that one of our largest clients, it's one of the largest insurance companies in the United States, they were applying our solution, one of our AI apps that we've built on top of our engine, to one of the business cases of theirs, and the savings are $3 billion a year. Just blew my mind away. And we never thought that's possible, but that's how those use cases work. And this happens during the process of discovering use cases and building more use cases. So I think there will be a lot more potential to be discovered across the whole industry and many other clients as well, to see how all of them are going to be disrupted. There's no one use case that would dominate everything. It's so many of them that it will be hard to choose which one is much more important.
Okay. Ahmed.
I think it's an extremely exciting time to be alive, especially if you're a geek. This is like imagining what computers would be before computers came about. I think computing fundamentally will change as you can speak to a computer in a much more natural way, which is where we're leaning into the synthetic agents so that you can mentally model another person, right, as your interface. So that's what we're really thinking that the large language models afford us, is this ability to speak naturally to a computer. There's tons of compute resources, and I think it's going to be transformational at the level of the Industrial Revolution.
Nice. Walter, you told us about baby AGI. What else?
I think for me, it's all about media and entertainment.
Media and entertainment.
Yeah.
And you're in Malibu right now, right, Walter?
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
Because this were, this, in I'm not talking about the zip code, but in Hollywood, in the sense that the media and entertainment industry is still an industry where people do business by phone, they text and they send you DocuSign. There is no real computer science optimization there. So think about scouting, think about scouting for locations, think about props, this can all be software. I want to see a movie in the future that I can prompt, and I say okay, instead of Tom Cruise, put me in there, and this will all be possible. The composability of music and of movies are a couple of years away. In 2 years from now, actually, the Grammys just announced de minimis, their new so AIs. Can only win if 20% of humans collaborate with them.
Okay.
It's a Ready Player One. Here we come.
Yeah.
All right, Benjamin, you get the last word on this.
Well, thanks. I had the benefit of listening to everybody else, but here's what I say. I think one area that I'm very passionate about is empower people to reach their full potential, which is I believe what we try to do as venture capitalists with founders. And to do that, you need to give them access to knowledge. And so acquisition of knowledge is interesting and important as human, as society. And so we invested 7 years ago in the founder in the core technology behind Alexa, and he built a new company called Prion. And this is not a Gen AI per se. They are using Gen AI elements and large language models to synthesize and summarize information accurately. And so I think you need to start building solutions with the intent to be trustworthy, to be transparent, to be, remove as many biases as you can, because that's the world we want to see. And when you take this kind of technology and you map it to any sort of information that an enterprise has and able to deliver knowledge in an instant. I'm not saying delivering a link to information that you need to read and assimilate. I'm talking about synthesizing knowledge and assimilating faster with source to a truth. I think that is going to just unleash billions of dollars in productivity, and that's really exciting to be part of.
Very nice. Louis, take us home.
I'm just so excited and motivated by this conversation, Brett, and thank you so much for bringing together 4 rockstar founders and 3 rockstar investors who are bringing this to reality. And I couldn't be more optimistic, Brett, no matter what happens in the world, when I'm surrounded by people like the folks that we brought together today. So thanks for doing it, Brett. Over to you.
I totally agree. This has been a great conversation. I think we could go on for hours, but I'm sure all of you have better things to do. Louis and I, all we have to do is go out to lunch, have some tacos, and we're good. Thanks, everybody. Really appreciate it. See you soon.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.